How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction, where you can find latest album reviews, you can find our band interviews, and you can find live coverage of the concerts that we get. I've been pretty quiet just because of the holiday, things of that nature. I've still been posting interviews, but they've been kind of slowing down just because I have kind of ran out of what I've had for stock in terms of interviews, but you'll still be getting a ton of them, hopefully very soon. I know this is a little bit late now because it is 2019. I hope all of you had a happy new year as well as a happy holiday as well. I posted a little update video a little while ago stating what I'd be doing for the rest of this new year and stuff like that. I'm a little bit behind just because I've had some, catching up with family and things of that nature. But I still want to do the albums of the year. I will still be doing the EPs of the year as well. So definitely be looking for those videos in the next couple of days, but I'm gonna knock one of those videos out, which is the albums of the year. This is my favorite time of year whenever I get to kind of look back and see what albums I really kind of dug, ones that kind of shifted around in terms of where they're at, and some that I didn't even review, but I love the bands, so I wanted to get them on there. So as per last year, and that I'll probably continue to do, is I have a ton of honorable mentions that I feel like that I liked, but that I didn't even really get a chance to listen to or review. So some of these I might not have even reviewed, but I listened to them, and I feel like they should have been included in the albums of the year. So some honorable mentions, the first one being This Wildlife's Petaluma. I think it was a great follow-up to Low Tide, I believe, and I've always been a fan of this band. I know that they just released an awesome cover of Doomsday by Architects off their new record, which, spoiler alert, they're on this list too. But I was really excited that they did that one, but getting back to their newest record, I think it's really good. I think that they're still keeping with the same direction as they did for previous recordings, which is totally cool. I appreciate the effort. I've always loved Kevin's voice, and I think Anthony does a great job of just the instrumentation on these records. So I just didn't feel like it was up there in terms of the other records that I really kind of fell in love with over this year, but I definitely wanted to include them as well. Another homie of the channel, Covet, Efflorescence, is another great record that you should highly go check out. She also released a piano EP today, so go check that out as well too. Hope to have a review up of that in the next couple of days, but really awesome stuff from this band. I'm so glad that they've been killing it last year, and they'll be killing it this year. There's some awesome stuff that they have that they haven't announced yet that I can't talk about, but it's really awesome, and I hope you guys get a chance to see them this year for sure. But another band that is unfortunately disbanded as of last year, the Afterimage Eve. It's one of my favorite records from last year. Definitely surprised that they kind of called it quits after this record. I thought they did a really great job. I know that a lot of people weren't a fan of the clean vocalists on this record, but I really felt like the cleans were different. They weren't trying to be something they weren't, and I always appreciate that. I also love just kind of the more like dissonant, the more techie guitar work of this band, and I'm glad that they kind of continued on with that, as much as I know that they have another band in the works that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I definitely would love to see them either come back to this or, hopefully do stuff with the Afterimage in the future. I know that it's not written in stone, but it would definitely be cool to hear them do more stuff like that. Another band is State Champs, Living Proof. I thought it was a great record this year, but the way that I've compiled this list this year, and I think I've compiled it for many other years, is how many times I go back and listen to a record and I really kind of love it. So this one, I listened to it a ton when I did the review, and as of more recently, I tried to go back and listen to all these records that I either did a review on or that I didn't, that I wanted to include on the list. And I felt like this one just kind of fell a little bit short of the mark. It's still a phenomenal record, still one that I recommend checking out for sure. But I feel like other bands throughout this year maybe just did that much better of a job than State Champs did. I still think it is their second best work in comparison to The Finer Things. That's still one of my personal favorite State Champs record. And I feel like they definitely did a great job. They're solidifying themselves as a great pop punk band, and I think this is just another good follow-up record into their anthology of what they're doing. So another band that I really don't talk about a lot, but I had a good friend of mine, Bailey. Shoutouts to him. He just joined Wave Break, so go give him a look. Go check out his band. But the band that he had mentioned to me was Ice Nine Kills, and their newest record, The Silver Scream. I've heard their band before. I've listened to their music before. I just feel like I never really delved into it as much as maybe other bands that I like that other people have recommended to me. So I wanted to listen to this record and just kind of get a feel for it. And as I was listening through to the record, I was like, man, this is awesome. Definitely one that I kind of regret not doing a review of. But it was such a great, like, it has that combination of, they're very like horror inspired, so they draw a lot from like horror movies and stuff like that, and the lyricism obviously follows that, and some of the musicality of the songs have that sort of horror theme to it. So it's definitely a unique aspect to their band, and one that I definitely liked a lot despite not maybe doing a review of it. So we're gonna get into my list of the top 30 albums of the year. Last year, I think I did 25 with 5 honorable mentions, and this year, I just keep adding more. I don't know why. I feel like it just gets harder and harder for me every year to come up with, more, just to kind of compile the list together into a smaller, just more congealed list. And this one just was hard. This year was just really hard. There's some awesome music. There's probably some records that I even missed out on that aren't even on this list that are awesome too. So let me know in the comments what you are feeling this year, if you agree with me, if you disagree. Again, this is all personal, so I'd love to hear what you guys thought was your best album of this year. But getting into number 30 is Polyphia, New Levels, New Devils. I did a review of this a little while back, and I went to go see them on their headliner tour not too long ago as well, and this record is awesome. I've always kind of been a fan of their band, and I don't mean like that kind of in like a bad way. I've always been a fan of their band, and I've always felt that instrumental music just in general is a little bit harder for me to get into. Despite being a guitar player, and this is like guitar candy, ear candy. So it's really awesome. I feel like the guitar work, I feel like just the instrumentation and the musicality of this record compares a lot to some of their like first records, like Inspire. That one's one of my favorite EP records that they did early on. I feel like their guitar work just matches that like real fast legato-y sort of parts, and they really took that and mixed it with a lot of like hip hop and like rap sort of influences as well, trap. And you can hear that throughout a lot of the songs off this record. And I feel like they kind of hit a lull for me for a long time, and this one really brought me out of that hole for Polyphia, and I love it. I think you should definitely go check out New Levels, New Devils if you've been kind of fiending for an instrumental record. I think you'll definitely dig it a lot. So we're going to move into number 29, which is the Great Heights band, Rad Pop. I did a interview with them at Launch Conference this past year, as well as I did a review of their record, Rad Pop, and to me, this band has that unique pop indie alternative sound, and I'm not just saying that because I can say it. I really genuinely mean that. They have that sort of Weezer sort of vibe, but they also have like a lot of like Motion City Soundtrack that they pull from, and there's even a little bits of like older like Blink 182 that I got in there as well. But it's got a unique sound. It has that cool sort of like synthy parts that remind me a lot of Motion City Soundtrack, like I mentioned a lot in the review of the record. And I just feel like they really compiled an awesome bunch of songs, an awesome sound, and they're able to just call it their own. I really can't put them in a league of other bands other than like the bands that I mentioned, Weezer and Motion City Soundtrack. I feel like those bands definitely are influences on them. I know that they had mentioned that a lot in the interview as well, but I also feel like just musicality, they really are carrying that torch and filling that spot that Motion City Soundtrack kind of left when they disbanded. But great record, go give it a listen. It's definitely one of the more unique sort of indie pop records that I did reviews on for this year, and I couldn't be more thrilled that they're on this list. So, all right, we're going to move on to number 28, which is the Wonder Years' Sister Cities. It's funny that I talk about this band just because they are a Philly band, and I'm from Jersey, so we are very close, and I go to Philly all the time for shows. But I never really gave this band a listen, and I know I'm going to catch so much flack. I can just imagine people just typing on their computer being like, you haven't listened to the Wonder Years, Sister Cities? Why you got to listen to Sister Cities? All this stuff. Listen, I'm just going to tell you, this got me back into the band. Like I said, I had heard of them, obviously being such a Philly native, or pretty close to a Philly native at this point. And I feel like this one just brought the best aspects of this band out, and there's some phenomenal tracks off this record, and it's kind of crazy because it was at kind of more at the beginning of the year, and I was very wary of whether or not I was still gonna keep it in the rotation, still gonna listen to it, and I've listened to it on and off now and again throughout the year, and every time I come back to this one, I always find something new to listen to, new to pick out, and I appreciate that as just somebody who, writes music for, just a passion and on the side, not as an actual career, and they've really stood the test of time as a pop-punk band, and I feel like this is just their, symphony piece. I know a lot of people are going to say Greatest Generation, people are going to say other records that, that they have created, but for me, what really solidifies this band is that they are able to create, they're able to make stuff different, and it still sounds like the Wonder Years. Soupy still sounds phenomenal, and that is the staple of great bands, and so I'm so proud to have the Wonder Years on this list because I think they definitely deserve it. So we're going to move into number 27, which is Windrunner. This is a band that I also did an interview with back a couple months ago, and they released a record called a few months ago as well. And this band, I feel like they have that sort of technical aspect to it, but I think the really unique quality of it is that they have a female singer, Duong. She's phenomenal. We had a great chat along with the rest of the band, Trung and Dave. Awesome bunch of people, and I hope that they come to the States very soon. But this record really got me just because I always love female vocals and that sort of heavy music, and she does some great screams as well, and they had some awesome features on the record as well, and I feel like they really kind of found that niche between like that sort of Asian vibe. It has some heavy moments, and it's got female vocals in it, and I think that all of those things, three things combined, really make a phenomenal record, one that I'm glad to have on this list as well. It's really got that sort of, heaviness to it, but there's also some really beautiful melodic moments throughout the record as well. So I definitely recommend go checking this one out. It was released, again, a couple months ago, and I definitely like this one a lot. So we're going to move it into 26, which is Don Vedda's A Hell of a Night. I did not do a review of this. However, this band's been on my radar for a very long time. They worked with one of my favorite producers of all time, Chris Crummett. He's done DGG. He's done a slew of awesome bands, Artifacts Pareo being one of my favorite bands of all time as well. And this band is so different, so unique. And my whole thought, also a whole nother thought to this record was, or, albums of the year, stuff like that, was that let me think of a list where it's just got some really uniqueness to it, and that, people obviously come to expect certain ones to be on this list if they just know me and they've seen me review stuff. But this one really took me by surprise. I love the sort of pop elements throughout this record. It's got almost like that R&B soul sort of vibe to it, but it's also got some like more like almost like 80s sort of rock to it. It's got some really great shreddy solos. The guitar work is phenomenal on this record, but also just the vocals are really killer. Again, they reminded me a lot of like Bradley Walden, Johnny Craig, those sorts of vocalists, but also that sort of like, like poppy. It's kind of hard to explain. It's like if maybe like the 1975 was just like that little bit, just has a little bit more grit, a little bit more character to it, and I feel like this would have kind of solidified what this sound would be if I had to describe it in any sort of way. I know it's probably not the best example, but really got that R&B like soul sort of infusion. And it's definitely one of those records that I've been spinning a lot recently. Like I said, these are all records that I try to spin maybe like once a week or something like that. So definitely Dom Vedda, go give them a listen, go give them a like. I know that they are one of the more smaller bands on this list, so please go show them some love. And then as always, go pick up some music. So we're going to move into 25, and I think this one is going to be a big curveball for most people, but this one is Joji's record, Ballads 1. For those of you who are unfamiliar with him, Joji used to be a YouTuber called Filthy Frank. Then he transferred over to being a music singer-songwriter, sort of vocalist, things of that nature. And I've been really getting big into that. I love Rich Brian, that sort of stuff, and most people probably would not come to expect that from me because I listen to a lot of heavy stuff. But I really love Ballads 1. It was so good. It's one of those records that you put on, it's chill, you just drive, you have that sort of vibe to it, and in an age where Post Malone's huge, I feel like Joji is that one artist that's going to be coming up very soon as well. And love just that sort of melodic, sort of almost like dark sort of vibe to it. It's almost got like a dark pop sort of feeling to it as well. And, it just has that like smooth sort of clean vibe to it that I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't add it on to this list. So we're going to move into number 24, which is Whalebone's Island Fire. This one is a good homies record. Nathan, Paul, love you guys so much. And this one record, I feel like, was their best work to date. I've been a fan of them for a while. I've interviewed them on many occasions. And I'm so glad that Island Fire is out because it has that sort of feeling. Backyard is one of my favorite tracks off the record. It has that real sort of feeling, and I also love Nathan's voice. I think that he's really got this unique cadence to his voice. He has this real kind of like, it's hard to explain. I would just highly recommend listening to it. He's got a unique voice that I feel like is unlike other artists that I hear nowadays, and it's really cool to hear him kind of express himself, do different things. And I know that he spoke a lot about like some of the stuff that he talked about in Island Fire, and it was really cool to get his perspective on that, and also Paul, because I think Paul did some writing on it as well. But phenomenal record. Really, if you're a fan of like Manchester Orchestra, you're a fan of that like alternative rock, you'll really be a fan of this sort of stuff. It would be right up your alley. We're going to move into 23, which is Time the Valuators, How Fleeting, How Fragile. This record took me by surprise. I've been a fan of them for a while as well, as like most of these bands on this list. And I actually interviewed them about a year or two ago now at this point. But they put out this record, and I was blown away by how good this one was. And I'm actually kind of now looking at my computer screen and looking into the camera. I'm kind of surprised at how low that I put it on the list. But if you've ever wondered what the vocalist from Hands Like Houses, if he joined a band like Periphery or something like that, then this is a record for you, because it is so like proggy in that way of like instrumentals, like the drumming, the bass lines, the guitar work, even a little bit of piano here and there, to like Trenton's vocals where he's got screams, he's got some really awesome cleans, and there's some awesome guest features. One of the guest features was the vocalist from Novelist, which, as you know, if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, Novelist's newest record, Noir, was one of my favorite records of last year, and it's good to have him on a track. And I'm kind of sad because I know that the vocalist that they had for this record is no longer with the band, but I still recommend going to give this one a listen because it is so unique, it's so different, and I really feel like a lot of you will actually enjoy this record. If you've been a fan of the channel, I feel like you guys will dig this one a lot. So we're going to move it into the next one, which is Avoid Alone, and this one is number 22 on the list. I've been a fan of this band for a minute too. I actually found out about them through another band, the Home Team, shouts to them. But this record was really good if you're a fan of like the heavier stuff, like more along the lines of like maybe like Moss of Flames or Beartooth, you'll definitely dig this band for sure. They have that sort of same sort of vibe to it, very heavy. And the vocals on this record are really killer. I love the cleans. The screams are really heavy as well. But it's just a solid record all the way around. I had to pick this up. I had to pre-order it. I didn't do a review of it, I don't think. But this is a band that I definitely recommend checking out if you're into that, like Wage War, things of that nature. This band kind of strikes all of those keys, all those notes, and it's definitely one that you should go give a listen to. All right, so we're going to move into 21, which is Crazyeightyeights' newest record, Burning Alive. I know this record came out pretty recently, and most of you will probably be surprised at how high up it is for being so new. But this one is so good. After I listened to it for the review, I've listened to it a ton more times, and it is just phenomenal. It keeps getting better and better with every listen, and I think that is their best work. I think is, like I said, it was a great follow-up to their EP, Tommy's Planet, I believe. And no words spoken. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I don't know. I'll fix it in post if I remember it. But really phenomenal record from the great minds of Lauren Babick and Jared Alonge. Phenomenal follow-up. I think that if you enjoyed the EP and you wanted them to kind of expand more and expand their sound, this one is definitely one to give a listen to, because I think that they really took a lot of chances on this record. Some obviously stayed safe with, but for the most part, I feel like they took their chances and they really came out with something beautiful. So we're getting into the higher numbers, so every number it gets a little bit harder for me to choose, but we're on number 20, which is Dance Gavin Dance's Artificial Selection. This one's a great DGD record. I think that they did a phenomenal job with this one. I think Tillian is really holding his own as a vocalist. I think he is currently the longest standing Dance Gavin Dance vocalist in the DGD lifespan, which is awesome, and I'm so glad that he's still in the band and he's still killing it. But this record is really awesome. I think the last track, Evaporate, was just the icing on the cake. They did a phenomenal job really honing that in, really kind of taking lyrics from older songs and really kind of masking it into one song altogether. The instrumentals are, what you expect from Dance Gavin Dance at this point. I mean, they've been doing it for long enough, and they really, I think, have found their sound and stuff like that. I think the vibes on this record are awesome, and it's definitely one that you should go give a listen. So we're going to move it into number 19, which is Boys of Fall, Better Moments. I really griped hard on Chasing Lonely, their EP, but I'm glad to report that they did a phenomenal job on Better Moments. I've even turned people on to this record that were not a fan of like the type of music that I listen to. So if that speaks any sort of volumes, then it should, because this record has that sort of pop sort of aesthetic to it. There are some heavier tracks. There are some screaming tracks. So if you felt like, Thank You and Goodbye was the only record that had screams on it, you'd be wrong, because there is some really awesome screaming heavier tracks off this record. But for the most part, I feel like they went for more of that groovy sort of pop, pop punky sort of vibe to it, pop rock sort of feeling. But phenomenal record. I love that Jake and Mike both do vocals. I think that is phenomenal. The way that they kind of intertwine together really makes the records unique, really makes the song unique, and just a phenomenal record from front to back. Definitely one that you should go give a listen to. So we're going to move into 18, which is Andreas, Heroes, Villains, and All That Jazz. This one is also pretty new. I think it came out in November, and I love Andreas. He's my boy, first of all, and I'm not going to let that cloud my judgment whatsoever. I still think it is a phenomenal record. Just the amount of times that I've been listening to it since it's been released is ungodly. But this one is just a great follow-up to Strange Memories on This Nervous Night, which, again, is one of my favorite records from last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I can't remember because I'm starting to get old, but really phenomenal record. I love the sort of different vibes that he was going for. It's anything from like sort of rap to like sort of trap sort of stuff, to like jazz, to like whatever you can think of, indie rock, emo. There is just everything on this record, and I like that he really branches out and he tries to do something different. Each song has its unique flair, it has its own personality to it, and I think that that's why it's so high up on this ranking, despite it being, much like Crazyeightyeight, being a newer record that has come out within the past couple months. It's really climbed the ranks in my mind, and I don't know if it's better than Strange Memories on this Nervous Night. That one holds a special place in my heart, but this is very close. If you love the last record and you love just kind of the more out there tracks, I feel like this record is definitely going to be one for you. So we're going to move into 17, which is Dawnbreaker's Technology. This one was very early on in 2018, and I thought that it was definitely going to be my album of the year. As you could tell, is number 17, so it is not my album of the year. But however, it's I'm telling you, it's getting real hard for me to decipher which one. And this one is just outside of some of my favorite ones, just because it's long. I think it is just incredibly long. It's like 18 songs or something like that. But nonetheless, they really kind of keep your attention for all 18 songs on the record, and that, if anything, that I should give them major kudos for that, because it's hard as an artist, as a listener, to listen to 18 tracks and still feel okay at the end of it, and Dawnbreaker really makes it easy. It's one of those bands that has that unique characteristic. It has those unique sounds. There's some pop sounds. There's some, some heavier songs on this record. There's a lot of sort of funk to it, and it's a phenomenal record. Despite being at 17, that should not knock the placement. It is still a phenomenal record. It's still one of those ones that I have in my collection, and that I love, and that I listen to on a semi-frequent basis. So go listen to Dawnbreaker's Technology, a great record from them. I even loved the follow-up to their previous work. I think that it just really solidifies them as a band, and I am so proud that they keep getting bigger and bigger in the States, because they definitely deserve it. So we're going to move into 16, which is Lim's Father Son. I've done a few interviews with them as of recently. They actually just came around, and unfortunately I couldn't have made it with them, made it out to see them with Currents and Sentinels, our homies on the channel. But this is a phenomenal record. If you've been a fan, if you like Every Time I Die, if you love Under Oath, if you love those sorts of bands, and you were kind of, disappointed where Under Oath went in terms of Erase Me, check this record out, because it definitely has those sorts of old school post-hardcore vibes, stuff that I feel like a lot of people will love, and I'm so glad that this is high up there, because it really solidified them as a band. They've been getting bigger things. Obviously, going on tour with Under Oath was obviously a major thing, and this record has those sorts of great heavy moments. It's got some really melodic, beautiful moments, and Chris really has a unique way of screaming, but also doing clean vocals, and you can really hear the full gambit of that on this record, and I like just the follow-up to Sleep. I think that they really kind of killed it. They really, pushed the envelope in terms of what they were going for in terms of sound, and I can't wait to see what they do next in the upcoming years. So we're going to move into 15, Hail the Sun's Mental Knife. Again, another band that I've had on the channel once before, and Hail the Sun, if you'd like to come back on, you're always welcome. But Mental Knife, I was really stoked. I got this one early. It was a record that I had been anticipating all year long, just because I'm a big Hail the Sun fan, not only because they are wonderful people, but the music that they make is absolutely incredible. And I think that this is their best work, in my opinion. It really kind of takes every aspect of what they were doing on previous records, like Wake, Culture Scars, even earlier stuff early on, It really kind of follows all of those sorts of things. It takes their band into a newer direction, and I absolutely love that they put their best foot forward on this record because it really sounds like it. Donnie is a madman doing clean vocals and drumming at the same time. Obviously on tour, it's a little bit different if you've seen it. Shout outs to Alan. He does all the touring drumming for Hail the Sun. But Donnie does some songs on the kit, and man, that kind of just blows my mind every time. But we're not talking about the live setting. We're just talking about the studio stuff. And again, I still think it's far impressive that he has done both of those things, and he does them awesome on both fronts. So definitely go give Hail the Sun's Mental Knife a listen. So we're going to move into 14, which is the story so far's Proper Dose. This record has been in the wings for a very long time. I know that they had been teasing it early on after their self-titled record, I believe, and it just felt like we weren't going to get another Story So Far record, and I'm glad that they kind of held off and that, people were kind of being like, okay, you take your time, you write your record, and you do it. So I think they really put out a phenomenal record. Just the way that they're able to kind of evolve and take things to a next level. I feel like they are no longer a pop punk band. While, obviously their roots come from pop punk, I feel like, to me, they are moving more in that sort of alternative direction, and I'm so thrilled about that because this record is probably their best work, maybe despite some older stuff. But this, every time I listen to it, I get super hyped about it. I love every track off the record, and there's just something about it that they took their time. It seems thought out, it seems methodical, and everything that they put into this record just really has all of those qualities that I like about this band. So go give the Proper Dose a listen because it is a great record. So, number 13, guys, Bearings, Blue in the Dark. This one is one of my favorites, and I think it took me by surprise, even, being earlier on in the year. I think that they really kind of shifted direction in terms of the sound that they were going for. I know that their first record is very pop punk, is very more along the lines of, the EP, Nothing Here Is Permanent, and this one has more of that indie flair to it. I reference a band from Rise's old anthology, Transit, and I still feel like that holds very true to this record. It has that sort of indie vibe to it, and I think that this is their best foot forward. I know a lot of people weren't too happy with this sonic change, but I feel like they garnered new fans with this record. I did not like the EP as much as I like this record, and I think that if they continue on this direction, I would totally be cool with it. If they kind of fused elements of both, that would probably be the best angle. But I think that the way that they're able to kind of do that sort of indie rock, sort of almost like pop punky sort of alternative sound, really put them in a limelight, and just a phenomenal record from front to back. So now we're getting into the hard stuff. I'm telling you, man, this record list was so hard to compile, and every time I look over at my computer, it gets harder and harder to say. But my number 12 slot is Silent Planet's When the End Began. This band is one of my favorite bands of all time. Garrett, you're a phenomenal human being if you happen to be watching this list. But this record was great. They really had some really heavy moments. They had some really beautiful, more melodic moments. And I like that there was a lot more clean singing on this record. I think that they really took the time to put Thomas up there, do some more singing. And overall, I think that just compilation of what they're doing on this record really, stands out to me. As much as I loved Everything Was Sound, I feel like this one is just that much better in every single way, and I was kind of surprised because that was one of my records from last year that I knew was pretty high up on the list, or I think 2 years ago, pretty high up on the list, and I was kind of worried how well it was going to be, transcend, because, they put out records every 2 years, which is kind of nuts to me, but this one is phenomenal. Another great Silent Planet record that has been released this past year. It was just awesome. Go give it a listen. I did a review of this one as well, and again, it was so hard for me to swap between this one and the next one. Speaking of the next band, the next record, number 11, is Fit for a King's Dark Skies. This band keeps continuing to do better and better stuff as the records progress. It blows me away at how Ryan, as a vocalist, has kind of grown. Actually, both Ryans, because there's technically two Ryans in the band. But Ryan Kirby, I'm blown away by just how he's been able to kind of, not only wrangle up the clean vocals, but also the screams at the same time. And it really makes a unique sound. I would love to hear more Tuck stuff in there. I know that is asking for a little bit, but I think that this record has some of their heaviest material to date. They really put their heavy foot forward, no pun intended, and it really came out brutal. It was really hard to decipher between this record and Silent Plan's record in terms of which one should go first before the other, but I feel like Fit for a King's was just that more aggressive, that more brutal, and just like it's hard to compare, but I mean, obviously Garrett's lyricism is otherworldly, so it's a toss-up. I still think those two are the one, if any of the two on this list to swap back and forth would definitely be those two, because it's so hard to pick, and for me it was hard to put Fit for a King above Silent Planet because I love Silent Planet, but I also love Fit for a King, so it was very tough. Go give Dark Skies a listen if you've been missing a super heavy record, because this one will definitely fill that need for sure. So we're cracking into the top 10 of my albums of the year. Number 10 is Era's Neon. For those of you who shouldn't be unfamiliar with this band, just a phenomenal heavy record this year. I think that they've, again, much like a lot of these other bands on this list, have improved tremendously. I think they put their best foot forward on this record. Some of my favorite Era tracks are on this record. I loved Ultima. I think that was a phenomenal track. Ghost of Nothing is another beautifully heavy orchestrated track, but also beautifully melodic. Breach was a phenomenal track. And I think they really found their foothold in terms of technicality, because I feel like with Augment, I personally would say that that's their most technical work. I know a lot of people might argue White Noise to be a little bit heavier, and a little bit more technical, but I really feel like they found their hole in Augment, and I feel like this one is about the closest approximation to that record as humanly possible without probably making the same record. But I really love the riffage on this record. I think that really stands out to me, as well as just the singing from Jesse and JT. I think JT did some really great screams on this record as well. But just the way that they are able to orchestrate everything into a song that is not only beautiful but also heavy is hard to come by, and I'm glad that this record is at number 10, because it was so hard to put it ahead of Fit for a King and ahead of Silent Planet. But I think that just everything in general, the way that they're doing stuff, really, speaks volumes for this record, and is, again, one that I've had on repeat since it's been released, at least once a week for sure. So we're going to move into number 9, which is Macari's Hyperreal. This record is great, and I'm glad that they recorded it with Andrew Wade. It's kind of a surprise to me that they went to Andrew Wade, just because I feel like, he does those heavier bands like Wage War, A Day to Remember, things of that nature. I know that he's done bands like Neck Deep, things of that nature, but I don't really take that into consideration, because I feel like Macari is just so different in the way that they're doing stuff. It has that sort of indie feel. It's very spacious. It has almost an ambient rock sort of quality to it, and just the Andy is a phenomenal vocalist. Just the way that he is able to interweave throughout this record is undeniable. I definitely have listened to this record an ungodly amount of times, and every time I go to listen to it, it's just beautiful. The way that they set up the instrumentals, the way that they have set things in place. I feel like for me, if I was to write a record, it would be very similar to this. And I might even take some pointers from Macari for sure, just because I feel like the ambient sort of vibes, just the instrumentation, the way that they arranged songs were just phenomenal. And obviously that's why it's number 9 on this list. So we're getting into the top 8, which is Seraphim's Shades of the Future. This band is a band from the Midwest. I believe it is Indiana. I'm not entirely sure. It might be Milwaukee, which is Wisconsin. I'm not sure. It's definitely a Midwest state for sure. But this band, I've been on a roll for a little bit. I did a review of Tabula Rasa, which is their EP that they put out not too long. Well, put out a couple years ago at this point. But this is the follow-up to that. And this band I've been, like I said, been keeping an eye on for a very long time. And the vocalist of this band is absolutely awesome. Again, stemming a lot from Era's older anthology like White Noise and Augment. The screams have that sort of vibe of Garrison in the way that he does his screaming as well. The instrumentation definitely reminds me a lot of old Era as well. And just the way that they're able to culminate stuff, I feel like is that much better than a lot of the other heavier bands that I put on this list. And that kind of surprises me in some ways, but at the same time it doesn't, because I feel like they put that much better of a record out. And I'm so thrilled that they'll be doing hopefully more stuff in the future. This record, again, was one of those sleeper records that I don't feel like a lot of people know, but should definitely go check out after they're done with this video, because it is so good. This might be your next favorite band. Again, if you're a fan of like Era, if you're a fan of like Fit for a King, or if you're a fan of like Silent Planet, this band is that band for you, and it is hopefully, the start of good things for them, because this one is a great record and you should all go give it a listen. So we're going to move into number 7, which is Architects Holy Hell. I didn't do a review of this one, again, just because I've been slacking a little bit, but this one record is hard to not put high up on the list, just because of just the tribute to Tom. This record is all for Tom, and you can hear it in every little line. You can hear it in every lyric pattern. You can hear it in the drops. You can hear it in every sort of orifice of this song. I don't know why I said orifice, because that is a terrible word, but you can hear it throughout this entire song and record. And I almost felt an overwhelming portion of like emotions and just feelings about this record, and I couldn't even imagine what his brother is going through at that time, going through and recording this record. And as a side note, please go check out Holy Ghost. They did a documentary on this record, and I'm not afraid to admit that I did cry while watching it. So get your tissue boxes ready and, go get your cry on. But this record just kind of has that emotional just push and pull, and I think that is why it is so high up on the list for me, just because every time I listen to it, I get that goosebump. I get those feelings of emotion, and that's what it's all about when you're listening to music, is if you get that sort of that energy about it, whether it's good or bad, you get that sort of feeling, and this record really kind of, brings that home. And obviously losing someone to cancer is not great, or just losing someone in general. So, if you listen to this record, and you agree with me, let me know. I would love to hear what you guys think about the Architects record. But again, phenomenal record from Architects. Go give it a listen. I don't know why you would sleep on this record, because it was a great one. Please go give them a listen. So we're going to move into number 6, which is Trash Boats, Crown Shyness. This one released, I believe, just before Warped Tour, and I saw them on Warped Tour, and I'm so glad I did, because this record really has some, hardcore vibes to it, pop punk, older punk, stuff like that. Great record. One of those records that gets me pumped every freaking time I put it on, and the songwriting is awesome. The title track, Crown Shyness, is a beautifully arranged track. And then they just have tracks that just make you just want to get excited, get hyped. And as somebody who listens to a ton of music and goes through the ringer a little bit, this one just stayed in the rotation all year long. And I'm so glad it did, because it is a great heavier pop punk record. It definitely reminds me a lot of the story so far if they went a little bit more aggressive. And again, go give this one a listen if you didn't, because you would be remiss if you did not, because it is, again, a phenomenal record. That any one of these records on this list are phenomenal, but this one is one of those ones that you should give a listen to if you're like pop punk, but you wish it was a little bit heavier. So we're getting into the top 5. These 5 records I've listened to so many times, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And it was, any one of these could have been number 1. And I think that goes to show, how much and how often I'd listen to a record like this in its capacity. And again, it was so hard for me to choose. But number 5, the home team's Better Off. I've just did an interview with them a couple months ago when they were on tour in the summer. And they released a record called Better Off. And this is what I was saying in terms of why I feel like State Champs was not on like the main list, is because this record, in my opinion, just overshadows and overclouds State Champs' record. I think that they did it that much better. They just have that way about it. They have that hook. They got that little earworm, that music worm that I feel like really makes a record awesome. And this one is no different. I think that the way that they are able to just have some really great pop punk elements to it, but also like I heard some like Panic at the Disco, some more like, again, State Champs. I know they borrow a lot from State Champs as well. And Brian, just their vocalist, is phenomenal. The way that he sings, I've seen them once live, and I'd love to see them again in this 2019. Great record. And I was not surprised it was this high up, because I did listen to it an ungodly amount of times. So we're going to move it into number 4, which is the Parallels Weaver. This one is pretty recent, but let me just tell you, this is probably one of the best heavier records of the year if you're thinking about more of a technical record. I love that they've been able to like interwove those sort of like heavier, sort of dissonant like guitar parts with not only Ron's singing, but also Brett's singing. And the way that they are kind of able to culminate each other. Luke's screaming is just bonkers good. And the way that they have, the formula that they have is just uncanny. It is beautiful. And I think that they really kind of, for me, hit every single note that I love about heavier bands. And the way that they have 2 kind of clean vocalists. Brett kind of does some screams, and then Luke handles all of the screaming parts, and then they just have some, like, insane guitar work. Nothing else really to say. I'm kind of at a loss for words for this record, but just the way that they were able to just kind of have that technicality but still have a melodicness to it is just unbelievable. So we're going to move into number 3, which is Greyhaven's Empty Black. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this band, I have talked about them way too much, and it's for good reason, because this record is great. It's been out for a very long time. I think it was pretty early on in this year, and it led up to, broke, and destroyed my expectations for what a heavy record should be. They borrow influences from Every Time I Die, but also just kind of like other bands. They're this one band on this list that is hard to place in terms of what they sound like, who they sound like. They just have a uniqueness to them. And this record, from front to back, I've listened to way too many times, and I still love it. It is just heavy. It's the way that their vocalist just does his cleans, but also the screaming lines and the guitar work and the drumming and the bass playing is just all next level. And is one that, again, I've been just gassing up all year long, and it is highly highly worth it. Go give this one a listen. Go give Empty Black. Go give Greyhaven a listen. Go support them because they are a killer band. So, number 2 on my list, Like Pacific, In Spite of Me. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this band, you need to get that knowledge. You need to go find out about this band. You need to go, as soon as you finish with this video, or just duplicate a tab, what you need to do is, you need to go type in Like Pacific, In Spite of Me, and then just, I'll wait here. You go listen to it. You tell me what you think, come back, make a comment, things of that nature. But this band put out one of my favorite records of this year, and obviously being number 2, it is up there in terms of the amount of times that I've listened to it. I had a rough first part of 2018, and I felt like this record really spoke what I was feeling, and that's the beautiful thing about music, is that I was able to feel those sorts of just emotions and feelings towards this record, and I absolutely love that about music in general, but this record just hits home for me, and I'm so glad it exists because it is a beautiful one at best, and just the way that they are able to kind of just have that sort of aggression out, but also still be very like pop punky. You know, pop punk music is very upbeat, very aggressive, very fast, and just paired with this sort of like more, darker sort of, not upsetting lyrics, but just like darker, more personable lyrics, I think just makes for, that perfect storm. And this record just, again, is unbelievable. I'm so glad it came out. Please go check out Like Pacific. Go support them. And definitely go check out In Spite of Me. We are into the last album of the year. Number 1, numero uno. My favorite record of this year is Beartooth Disease. I don't know what to say about this record. Much like Pacific's In Spite of Me, this record hits home too. And I think it even hits more so home for me when you watch the documentary Greatness or Death that Red Bull and Beartooth did. It really gives some beautiful insight into Caleb's writing style and, where he draws from on this record. And as someone, again, that was going through a rough first half of 2018, I think this record really kind of hit home for me personally again, and it just was unreal at how you think something, you see it, and then it's spoken by somebody else. And much like I was talking about in Architect's Holy Hell, it just has that quality of like, you feel those things, you have those sorts of feelings about, a certain thing in your life that happened. And so this record really kind of hits home for me in that regard. I try to keep all of my personal stuff out of the channel just because, it shouldn't be. But this record just, hits that spot, and I sure most of you have that sort of feeling as well. But this record is unbelievable. Go give Beartooth all the love it can. But I think that I was not really impressed with Aggressive. I loved the first record a ton, and I think Caleb really just honed it in on this record. I think that what he did on this record was just absolutely beautiful. I can listen to it now. I listened to it a ton back then. I probably will listen to it a ton in this year. It is just one of those records, and I think just further solidifying at how great this record is, I think it's even more so impressive that he's doing this all himself, essentially. He's doing all the writing, all the drumming, all the guitar parts, all the bass parts, all the vocals, and it just shows how much dedication, how much love he has for music, and so you can definitely hear it in the writing, you can hear it in how phenomenal this record is, and how much hope and faith that he had to put into this thing, and you can hear it. So I love this record a ton. Let me know what you have for this year. Let me know what your top 10 are. I would love to see what you guys have been listening to, what you guys have been spinning. It's always a point of pride for me to take a look and see what other people are listening to so I can branch out. And one of my goals for 2019 is to really kind of do stuff that just a little bit out there. And I think I kind of took that step this year with some of the records that I did, or some of the records that I listened to, whether or not I reviewed them or listened to them. But I'm hoping to get into some more, out there sort of stuff. Maybe not like psychedelic shit, but like I'm hoping to get stuff that are kind of outside my comfort zone and really kind of, listen to it and come at it from a different perspective than where somebody else might come at. But that's my albums of the year. EPs of the year will be recorded very soon. I'm hoping to have them maybe out one after the other. But it's been really hard this year. 2018 really was a hard year to pick music. There was some fantastic records, and I'm sure I've left some off this list. But this is what I have for now. It'll probably stay that way. But again, phenomenal year, 2018 for music. Please go check out all these records. I will try to leave my list from 1 to 10 and the honorable mentions in the description so you guys can check them out. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you had placed in your albums of the year. And if you enjoyed this, sort of long video, it's a very long video, make sure to subscribe, hit that thumbs up. It goes a long way. And again, guys, hope you had a happy New Year's. And I thank you guys so much for the support in 2018. It's been awesome. And I can't wait to show you what I have for you in 2019. So, guys, talk to you later. And I hope to hear from you soon. Peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to go check out the other series we do. We do album reviews, we do band interviews, and we do live videos, so definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps out our channel, helps us grow. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Go follow us on social media. That's all down below. We try to keep that as updated as possible. We also made a new website where we'll be posting photos of upcoming concerts and stuff like that, which you can go check out at audioaddictionmedia.com and come get your fix with us, guys. Talk to you later. Deuces.